Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
Rolling Stone magazine has ranked him as one of the greatest voices of our time. We're so honored to have on the show Paul Rodgers. Paul, thanks for coming on.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You know, I keep up with you on social media, Paul, but we got to talk about this new album that you have out with so many incredible songs, 8 songs on it, Midnight Rose, your first solo album in 25 years. Why did you feel like now was the time to do it, Paul?
Well, it was about time. I'd been promising the fans that I would do a new album, and I actually got it together. But there was the period when I was resting, and I was sitting with my acoustic guitar, and I decided to just collate all of the songs I had together. And then the next step was like, well, let's go in the studio and see what we can do. So the plan wasn't really, let's make a great album. Let's just go in the studio and see what happens. And it was an amazing experience.
Well, I think it's going to be an amazing experience for our listeners and your fans also. When I went through the whole album, Paul, to me, I could hear nods to all of the different groups and certainly a number of the artists that you played with over the years. You know, some songs had a little bit of a Zeppelin sound, obviously Bad Company sound, which is no surprise. Also, I heard Free. I think my 2 favorite songs on Midnight Rose are Our Midnight Rose, the title track, but also, I got to tell you, Paul, Melting hit a sweet spot with me because that very bluesy open, which reminds me of the early stuff that you did with Free. And then it gets more rocking. I mean, it seems like, you know, you really had a lot to say in this album, you know, but also wanted to meld in a number of your styles and influences.
Well, exactly that, you know, that's exactly right. There are a lot of influences throughout the album. I also wanted to pay homage to America and American music, you know, blues, soul, rock and roll, jazz, country has all been part of my growing up experience, and to basically to thank America for the music. Yeah.
Well, and once again, you know, with everything that you've done in music, it's like, you know, I mean, the list is ridiculous. The folder of prep that I did on you, I feel like I could write a book on you at this point, Paul. You know, just from your early days, you know, and some of our viewers may not realize this, but you know, as a young person, your dad was the first one to really buy you a guitar and sort of, you know, help with your interest in music, right?
Yes, he bought me a guitar. I just turned up with it one day and handed it to me. Well, there were 7 kids in the family, so it was quite amazing to suddenly find myself with his guitar. I still don't know. He never told me why he bought it for me. But anyway, he did, and bless him. And I sold that and bought a bass and became a bass player. Yeah.
You know, and I found that so amazing because once again, growing up with your music and, you know, 6 multi-platinum albums with Bad Company, but certainly with Free, with all the great music you made and All Right Now and everything. But I always think of you as a vocalist. But in all honesty, Paul, you're also a multi-instrumentalist. And in the early days in England, you were playing bass.
Yeah, I was indeed. Yeah, and I've played guitar on stage a number of times. But basically, I like to sing. And so I like to leave the instrumentation to the experts, the guys I bring in, you know, and they're really, really good. They really are. I mean, I've played with some great guitar players, right?
I thought, you know, I was thinking about that before we did the interview, Paul. It's like you're like a magnet. You are a magnet for great guitar players, you know, just like Kosovo and with Jimmy Page and with all of these. And also, let us not forget Queen and Paul Rodgers, you know, which, you know, that was a big role to step into. But, you know, you made it your own. And I think you kept the Queen fans happy as well.
Well, thank you, Eric. You know, it was a pleasure to do it, really, because Queen had everything going for them, except the singer. They had the band, the music, the hits, the fans, you know, but they just didn't have a front man at the time. And I was very happy to fulfill that role. And we went all around the world twice and made a studio album. So it was a good experience.
You know, looking back over your career now, Paul, what does it feel like to where you've had 36 albums come out, including your brand new one, Midnight Rose, sold over 126 million copies, you know, worldwide, multi-platinum albums. I mean, the Bad Company, you know, hit song list alone, you know, it just ridiculous. I mean, you and I both know you can't attend a wedding or a major event and not hear at least one Bad Company song played by the DJ or the band, right?
Well, yeah, I guess it's true, and it's a great place to be, But I mean, all my life I've just followed the music. I came from a little town up in the northeast of England called Middlesbrough,
Mhm.
and I followed the music because I heard freedom in the music,
Right.
especially blues, especially soul music, and rock and roll, of course. And the music has taken me from my hometown to London to New York to around the world, and I'm still following the music.
Well, and you've always stayed in great shape. And I know in the recent past you've had some health issues, but how did the music, with the strokes, with the many strokes and two major strokes, Paul, how did the
Yeah,
music help bring you back? Because certainly, your voice is so iconic, but also, these are brand new songs on Midnight Rose. How
yeah.
did you fight your way back to the great shape you're at now?
Well, thanks. I mean, thanks indeed, because I am in good shape. It's amazing for me to find out because I couldn't talk, I couldn't walk. I was all these sort of things I had to relearn. I certainly couldn't play guitar. In fact, Cynthia opened the guitar case and I would walk past it like not recognizing it as a guitar. Anyway, I started to play it and I started to, come back. But I'll tell you what, though, hyperbarics has been a very big help for me, which is oxygen under pressure. It's been really helpful. So it all started to come back to me, and it was wow. It's still coming back. It's amazing.
Well, you mentioned Cynthia, and I've got to bring her up again too, because I know she's been involved in this album. But I
Oh,
love the album cover.
oh
And
yes.
so, how did you and Cynthia work together to pull this off on Midnight Rose?
Well, basically, I did the singing, and she did everything else.
That sounds like a pretty good deal, Paul.
It was a good deal for me, I'd tell you. Well, she did a lot of production, and that's so. It's so key to the success of a musical a piece of music, because there's so much you have to carry in your mind that you need to remember. Let's tweak that. Let's put that there. Let's make sure you can hear that. All the nuances of the music you need to bring out, and that's what a good producer does. And that's surprisingly, she stepped right up to the plate and did that.
Wow.
Of course, with Bob Rock helping.
Right, right. Well, and I was also going to bring up, Paul, to where, you recorded this between two different studios also.
Yeah. Well, I just thought, well, I'll just go locally and get a couple of guys. I got my rhythm section out from Vancouver, and there's a guy down the road with a studio, and he plays guitar also, and he's an engineer, studio engineer. And so we just got in just that way, put the bed tracks down. Then we got really, really hot and heavy and took it to Vancouver, Brian Adams' studio,
Mhm.
and brought in Bob Rock, and Cynthia started to produce it, and it was went from there. Yeah.
Well, and the album, the songs really seem to come from the heart, listening deep into them. And I certainly recommend that our viewers do the same with this album. I think that, to really take in all 8 songs, but you make some political statements, which obviously come from your heart about the current state of the world, but also you've still got some fun songs in there that just feel like Bad Company. It's like going,
Yeah.
okay, this is a song that you would turn up with a convertible top down. Right. So
Yeah.
you've sort of got it all within this 8-song package, Paul.
Well, I think so. There is a lot of heart and soul in this, and there must a lot of love too. I could talk about what should I talk about? Coming home. This was for all the veterans, and all the frontline people who keep us safe, basically. The medics, the fire people, the firefighters, and all of the everybody that keeps us safe. So it was an ode to them. I could go through it. Photo shooter. Well, that's about as you would think, a photographer, which could be a man or a woman, who you can put that person basically anywhere there's something going on. Like if it's a sports thing, it's a sport event, it's a traffic accident, it's a crime scene, or it's a fashion scene, whatever it is, you can put the photo shoot right there. It's a very much an action-packed song.
I love that song. That's another one of the songs that, it's so interesting because listening to the beginning of the album to where it's like the drums are really kicking in. I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this is like a Bad Company album.
I
But then,
know.
like I said, listening deeper into the tracks, you've got one track that's almost like Bob Dylan. You've got a track that's like a nod to Zeppelin. And then, as I said, the final track, one of my favorites, Melting, really has that blues feel again that, you're one of those, artists, I think, Paul, that's always been able to bring the blues home. And I know that back in the old days when you started with the band with Free, The Hunter was one of your big songs.
Absolutely.
But then, also you're able to, deliver the range for rock and roll.
Well, thanks very much. As somebody said yesterday, you're not a rock singer, you're a soul singer who sings rock. And I kind of like that, and it's kind of true. And, with Melting as well, I started with the acoustic guitar and the riff, and I thought, wow, that's so John Lee Hooker. I love that, And,
Exactly.
It's a story of probably an outlaw back in the Wild West when it was vast areas of lawlessness, which is a thing that we'll probably never see again, hopefully,
Right.
But yeah.
It's great. So, well, I wanted to bring up also, following you on social media, Paul. It's so much fun. It seems, once again, coming through the hardships and everything, and a storied career with everything you've done and shared the stages with so many amazing artists and they with you. It seems like you're kind of living your best life now, Paul. I mean, you're outdoors, you're out doing hikes. I mean, how are things going? Besides having a great new album out, it seems like you're doing pretty well.
Thank you. I am. When I set out, there were three things I wanted to keep in mind. Now that I look back and think about it, and that was, one was to survive, and two was make music while I was doing that. I've forgotten the third one now. To find peace of mind and to make music while I was doing that. Those were the three things. Yes.
Well, and I've got to ask you this. Obviously, with the new album out, and it came out number 7 on Billboard, I believe, which is just ridiculous. What are your plans for the coming year? Are you planning to put your band together again and tour with this solo album? I mean, I wish you had some hit songs to play along with this new album also that fans would want to hear when you're out and about.
Well, I don't know. There are no plans to tour at this moment in time. We've been too focused on making the album and recovering and all that kind of stuff. So I haven't really thought about touring just yet. So we'll see.
Well, I certainly hope you do, because I think the songs are certainly deserving of it. And I thought it was great back when you had, the Bad Company reunion and even brought another hit out of that. But, I'm a fan of also what you did with The Firm and with The Law, with those bands also.
Yeah, Radioactive.
Can't go wrong with that. I mean, really, what a time capsule of a song that was so big at that time and all over MTV also, Paul.
Wow. Well, music has changed so much. It's very digital nowadays, and very precise and exact and very clean. I mean, when we were playing back in the old days, I mean, that's what I tried to do in the studio this time, was to just recreate that sort of, basically you going for the feel more than the sound even, you want to get that track that's got the magic. And that's what we went for. We're all the 4 guys were in the studio. We could see each other, feel each other's presence, see the kit, and just rock out. And that's what we did.
Well, and I've got to ask you also, Paul, with writing these songs, you're such a prolific songwriter and vocalist. I mean, how do you keep your vocal chops up, and how do you write? Because I know that, certainly you play piano also. And so you've written on guitar and piano. How do you keep up your chops to stay so current with all of these hits through the years?
Well, it's just practice, isn't it? But I didn't do too many shows while I was touring with my solo band and with Bad Company. I kept it to a limit, which saves the voice. I know there's a lot of people, a lot of singers out there will blow the voice out because they work too much, basically, So I just sat back a little bit and, and saved it a bit. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, with all of the reunions and everything you've done, do you think it might be time to bring back together the Wildflowers?
I think it is. It's about time we did that.
I'm just saying. I mean, of reunions, I mean, it's like, okay, we're putting the band back together. I mean, you'd have to, get your chops on bass again going on it.
Oh my God, yeah. The first song I actually sang playing bass was The Searchers. Just a little rain falling from the sky. The grass lifts its head to the heavenly side. It was a protest song all those years ago by The Searchers. Wow.
And look at that, today with Midnight Rose, you're bringing back and you're making your statements and sharing, your views on the world. And I think that, once again, your voice and the music in these 8 songs is just incredible.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you indeed. I wanted the album to be positive, to send out a positive message. And that's basically what it's all about, staying positive, you know?
Well, and all the little pictures on the cover that you and Cynthia did too, it's kind of a snapshot of your life within the cover of the album.
Yeah, well, you know, Living It Up was a snapshot of my whole career. In fact, you know, left it all in Steeltown, my northeastern UK home, and I traveled around the world, you know, so it was very, you know, following on from that, basically. Yes.
Well, you know, when I was listening to Living It Up, I thought too, it's like, wow, what a great time, you know, in Paul's spare time to work on his autobiography also, and that maybe there should be a documentary that would come out.
Maybe.
I don't know if there's any conversations on those two things, but
well, no, I don't know that there is. But we'll see.
I think there should be.
Yeah.
I know I would definitely watch a documentary on you, Paul, and your great career, and also, you know, a book, you know, with all of the amazing musicians that you've played with all the years, and also, you know, the Phoenix story of yourself coming back from health issues, and you know, new album, and just being the best person you can today.
Well, thank you. You know, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Staying positive and putting out a positive message. Mm-hmm.
Well, you certainly have. Well, I know that Midnight Rose is available on vinyl, CD, and all digital downloads, and possibly a tour, but definitely, you know, I think that all of our viewers should follow you on social media, because I always enjoy the little videos you do each day that you and Cynthia put together. And I think it's kind of a snapshot into your rock star life now and how you're keeping it going.
Thanks. Yeah, well, it's very healthy up here. It's very, there's a lot of wild nature, and we have deer in the yard, and we have, what do we have? We have coyotes, we have eagles. Yeah, it's great.
It's incredible. Well, I'll tell you what, Paul Rodgers, thank you so much for coming on the show. Midnight Rose is out now, and once again, I think our viewers should purchase the album, whether on vinyl, digital, or CD, and they're going to enjoy every hit song on here just as I have. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Eric.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.